One child, one teacher, one pen, one book can change the world. My next guest actually changed my world. This is the very first girl that I ended up coaching. And, I just want to welcome Keagan King to the next episode of the Iowa Girls Wrestling Stories podcast. How are you doing tonight?
Good.
Good. I think, a day or two ago, I sent you a small clip of Mariah Webster talking about your last match and maybe the impact you had on her, and you were not aware of the impact that you had on people. And
No.
yeah, the impact you had on me, obviously, we'll go over that tonight and all of everything. But where are you at right now? What's all going on?
So right now I'm in my last semester of nursing. I'll graduate in December, so in a couple weeks with my RN. Currently working as an LPN and working as a mom.
Very nice. And you have one little girl right now that's
Yep.
probably about at the age where she's full of spit and vinegar, we'll say.
Yep.
How is that going for you?
She gives me a run for my money.
Yes, keeps you in shape and all that good stuff.
Yes.
Does she take after her
Yes.
mother or her father?
A little bit of both.
A little bit of both. And then did I hear correctly that she's going to be a big sister?
Yep. We are welcoming our son in January.
January. All right. Very good. So you that's busy. Graduate
Yes.
December, baby in January. That is going to be a busy time.
Yes.
What else is going on right now? I mean, are you got anything going on like with wrestling at all, or are you just kind of a fan at this point in time?
Right now I'm just kind of a fan. I was going to coach for Ridgeview. School kind of was a bit much for me. Decided, let's get through school. Let's get through my one child, get a little bit older, let life slow down a little bit. And I definitely want to come back and start coaching.
Yes, and you have a little sister that will be in her, is this her junior year?
I believe so.
Oh my
Yes.
God. God dang. It's been 10 years and stuff for us. So yeah, that's quite a while. How's she doing?
She is doing really good. She was back, I believe, last year after her back surgery,
Yeah.
and she did phenomenal for, I mean, having something so major done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah,
Yeah, I know she probably wasn't real excited not to qualify, but to be at a point where, you know, prior year not knowing if she'd even get a wrestle again in her life, to being back on the mat was pretty awesome. And yeah, she's a great young lady. So let's take this all the way back like 10 years. Actually, it's probably longer than 10 years for you actually wrestling. When did you start wrestling?
I started in sixth grade.
Okay. And you want to tell the story of the whole epic, how you got started?
So it was, I started football my sixth grade year. Wasn't a huge fan. Told my dad I wanted to try wrestling. I grew up with watching my cousins and my brother wrestle. It looked really fun. I wanted to try it. So my dad took me to the very first practice and he told me you have to wrestle the toughest kid at practice. And I'm like, that's not a big deal. That's fine. So it ended up being a Blake McAllister I had to wrestle. Um, Went in, obviously got beat, but that's okay. I didn't know anything. Came home, was super excited because I got to join the wrestling team now. Well, a couple years later, I found out my dad told my mom before we left that he was going to make me wrestle the toughest kid. I was going to get hurt and not want to do it again. And his plan definitely backfired on him.
Yes, it did.
And I continued every year on.
Very nice. How was wrestling? You know, that you're back in the days that these girls wrestling now don't even remember. You know, the class that graduated this last year, I believe no, the class that graduates this year is the last class that had to wrestle boys in high school. So I mean, some of them are still wrestling, co-ed in middle school. But what was your co-ed experience wrestling in middle school before we met?
It was kind of frustrating for sure. Um, Definitely thought of times of quitting because it just felt like I wasn't getting better Especially like seventh grade year. I was like, I'm not getting any better. I'm losing all the time. And then I would wrestle the girls, and I'm like, okay, well, now I know that I am getting better, but why isn't it not transitioning over? And then eighth grade year, it definitely got better. I did start to win more matches against the boys. And then the girls, I felt like I fared pretty well over most of them. But basically, it just kind of was a frustrating game to play in middle school, I feel like.
Now, how many girls did you run into wrestling in middle school at that
I
time?
don't I don't think during the season I ever wrestled any. I think there was maybe one or two that were not in my weight bracket, but there wasn't many at all unless we went to the further tournaments that were all girl
Yeah, so you
tournaments.
you ran into those at different girls tournaments and things.
Yep.
So then, before your freshman year, I was helping at Esac County, and I had one girl that had come into the room, so I was searching for a practice partner for her. And this is crazy how the world works and how the universe works, because my nephew, I was asking him, or I was talking to him and saying that to him and his wife, because they live in the area, and then I had just moved back. And lo and behold, his wife had a cousin that was a female wrestler that was going to be a freshman. And then you came to the club. What was it like even that first day? Because I'll tell you my experience from that first day, and maybe we'll contrast that.
Um, Definitely a different experience, not something I was expecting, a little overwhelming because I've never had a coach that's been, I don't want to say willing, but has been focused on girls. It's always been like, well, you're just kind of stuck with the boys. We're not going to work on your specifics as a girl. So it was definitely just kind of overwhelming to have somebody work on a specific girl thing versus the guys and be able to adjust to my stuff versus having me adjust to guy stuff.
Yeah. Well, my recollection is that very first day, I don't think I paid attention to you much at all. I think I had someone else in the room helping me that day, and I can't remember exactly who it was. It might have been Rachel or somebody, but I think they worked with you. And then you came back, and the girl that I actually was looking for the partner for never came back again. Yeah, so it was just like this crazy turnover. But then, you kept coming back week after week, and then it was time for football to start, and we were kind of disbanding the club because almost all the guys were on football. And then I got a text from you that said, "Hey, would you be willing to possibly coach me at uh, conflict at Carver?" And I was like, "Oh hell yeah! I've girls boys wrestling aside, coaching at Carver would be really cool." So we started training then a little bit harder. And I want you want to talk a little bit about how things got going there?
For the tournament,
Yeah, just how we trained for that tournament and stuff, because I got a couple little tidbits to throw in.
I feel like we worked our asses off.
Yeah.
um, Practice once a week. I know, like towards the end, we kind of did take a little break the week before. Um, Worked on a whole bunch of new stuff, got it down. I feel like we did a lot, and then we walked into the tournament and got our asses handed to us. I feel like.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, my thought was, wow, I mean, I can't imagine how hard this tournament's going to be. I mean, I've thrown everything at you. You really hit things well. We should walk through this tournament. And then, do you remember who your first match was against?
Was it Rona?
Yeah, yeah. The
Yeah.
returning cadet world champion, very first match. I knew that
Mm-hmm.
ahead of time. You didn't.
I did not.
Yeah.
Then I found out.
Then you found out. Yeah, it was interesting. And then Allison Schuster was the next match, I believe.
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah, and then there was the two girls from Illinois that we
Yep.
wrestled that day, which the day actually got better as you wrestled, but did not
It
win a
did.
match.
Nope.
One of the things I remember is sitting at the top of Carver Hawkeye Arena, and you were coming up the stairs, and I was like, "Well, here it is. She's going to tell me she's done." And what came out of your mouth was, "I want to be that good." And so at that point in time, I knew that we were just gonna be fine together and everything. So um, the very next thing we did, and this is I wanted to ask you about your experience at this because mine was wonderful. But we went down to Lincoln, and it was Allison Schuster's family put on a clinic that brought in Emma Randall, who was the Olympic coach, but she was the development coach for USA Wrestling for juniors at the time. What was that experience like for you? Probably first time being around a female coach.
That it was different. It was a good feeling to see that, you know, girls wrestling doesn't just stop at wrestling. You have the coaches that are there. It was cool to see how many people she has impacted in her life as well and helped out to get as far as they can.
Yeah, it was just, I mean, and then the way I've been around Emma one or two other times since then, and just her coaching style is so impressive. It's so awesome. Now, funny story, we get back from this trip, and it was uh, uh, Michaela Patterson went with us. Is that right?
Yep.
So Michaela went with us, and we stopped and we ate and we got back kind of late. And I remember your dad. He tried to have the talk with me. I was like, oh my God, Bill. I think I'm 5 years older more than that. Your dad. And I was like, I think your daughter's fine. We'll be all right. So that was kind of how we got everything started. But then your freshman year went pretty well for you. You wrestled, I think, at 126, and you were the varsity person at South Central Calhoun. So why don't you talk a little bit about your experience as a freshman? Because I wasn't around the whole time. I was only there about 2 times a week.
It was an experience. I did have to have a wrestle off for my varsity spot, actually all 4 years of high school. So I did have to earn my spot for that. I know Schultz wanted me to drop to 120, and that was kind of at that time difficult for me. So I told him, you know, I'm happy at 126. We went there. I feel like it went good for the most part. Not a lot of wins, but still quite a few, I felt like. There was still kind of that age gap where boys weren't fully developed yet, kind of in there.
Yeah, in the area, I think you were definitely one of the better 126 pounders. You know, state-wise, probably maybe not, but at least in the area, you know, you were competitive. You got a lot of team points. You know, you scored. I remember Rachel Waters' dad was keeping track of matches that year for the girls with IA Wrestle, and you were back and forth with Rachel at the time, and you know, which was kind of cool to even. I didn't know who Rachel Waters was at the time. Sure do now, you know, but it's cool that you were going back and forth there. You know, and at the time, you know, it was just, I think we went down to Norwalk for female elite state. That was probably the first time you've been around a bigger wrestling tournament, just girls only. What was being down in Norwalk like, and maybe some of the things that you learned down there, or some of the people you've met down there?
Oh boy. It was a really good experience. I felt like there I did get to prove who I was as a wrestler, kind of where I came from, the little small town. If I'm being honest, I don't remember everyone I met down there.
I think that's when we ran into Shay.
Okay.
Probably Atlanta. I'm guessing.
So quite a few of the people I'm really close with still.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't remember what you placed the very first year down in Norwalk. Probably was somewhere around that 4th or 5th. Am I right in there?
I think so, yes.
Somewhere in there. And then that tournament ended up moving up to Independence after that. And you were able to become a female elite state champion, I believe, at least a couple of times, which is kind of
2 years. Kind of 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause the one year there was just nobody in your weight class. So you went up.
Bracket.
Yeah. Along with some of those things, you know, I mean, man, you know, I think Coach Schultz, for the most part at South Central Calhoun, did a really good job of nipping little problems in the bud, you know. But how do you think overall your teammates were, being a girl in the room? You know, and maybe it was different each year a little bit, but maybe kind of talk a little bit about what your experience was like wrestling the boys all the time in the practice room, and you know, how it's different than today.
Definitely took a long time, I feel like, for most of the teammates to get used to having a girl in the room. I would say by probably freshman year, everybody I grew up wrestling with that were in my grade kind of got used to it, were used to me as a teammate. But the older classmates and younger classmates, I felt it took them a while to actually not get a little bit of confidence, realize that I'm not the typical girl. Like, I'm here to actually wrestle, here to play the sport, be a part of the sport. And just putting that with an experience of like getting to practice and do some warm-ups with girls on other teams, there was definitely a big difference. I mean, the boys just aren't as welcoming, I feel like, in a way. No matter how warmed up to you they are, they're just still kind of like on that skeptical train of what they're supposed to do and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, we decided at one point in time to start a club, and my thought was, well, hell, we'll start a club. We'll have 20, 30 girls next week. That didn't happen. We were a club of one for about 2 years until we got messaged by Jason Shepard. And that's when we started doing the traveling around. And that was kind of unique because we would go to a different school kind of every weekend. And we were preparing to go to Mad of Dreams, if I remember right. So what was it like? Because each week, and I'm looking at pictures on my wall. I'm in the basement. You've been down in the wrestling room before. I'm looking at pictures on the wall right now. Well, and you're in probably over half of them, but I'm seeing the practices, and you can almost see the growth in the practices just, looking at the pictures. How was that to, finally start to be in all girls practices, you know, and be around just girls that had kind of being like-minded with you?
I absolutely loved it. Most of those girls to this day, Tatum, Jolynn, Shay, all of them, they're still really good friends. I mean, they'll still snap me, ask me how life's going. I mean, they're lifelong friends. They will always be family to me. Even not have been on a wrestling mat in probably a good year or so. They still always make sure to be there for me as a person. And again, just watching that growth every week. I mean, it was phenomenal to, hear about their stories as well on wrestling and the boys and all of that. So
It's hard to remember exactly which year, how, because this happened over a couple year period of time, but it seemed like as we got closer down to the Omaha area, because we did some practices we did a practice at TJ, we did a practice at Midland University. Man, there's a lot of kids, a lot of people in those rooms and stuff.
yeah.
And that was really cool at the time, because we were having practices probably with 20 to 30 girls. That's like 7, 8 years ago, unheard of, and it was so much fun. What was it like in some of those first dual tournaments that we did, like the Mat of Dreams and things like that?
I would say those were probably by far my favorite ones. Those are where, again, most of the lifelong friends have come. It's definitely an experience to see all the different types of wrestlers out there. I mean, every wrestler has their own style, and it was so fun to get to learn the girls for their styles, and just get to meet all of them and get to know them.
Yeah, those tournaments were just insanely fun, I think. And it's fun to look back at the pictures on there, because we really didn't do very well at most of those, as a team wise. But then you look at the pictures, and you have Abby McIntyre's on one of those teams, and Abby McIntyre is ranked first in the nation right now in the NAIA. You had yourself, you had Shay, you had I'm just trying to think. We had Kaylee Reese on a team who's also ranked in the NAIA. We've had, I mean, there's just countless college wrestlers that have been on those teams. And at the time, we were just getting together and learning how to do the sport. And now it's amazing to see the growth in that and where everybody's come. Your high school career was plagued with injuries. I want to talk a little bit about how that was, mentally, physically, even explain that maybe, you have that connective tissue disorder that probably was partially to blame. And then I'll blame wrestling boys as the other portion of that. But go ahead and talk about injuries and everything you went through in that.
To start off, mentally, at first, it wasn't a lot, 2 shoulder surgeries. I heard of Alana, she went through it 2 years in a row too, I'm pretty sure. And I was like, it's just part of girls wrestling. It's just kind of what it is. And then next it was my hips. And it just kind of mentally took a toll on me, thinking like, why is this happening? What's going on? Physically to this day, I still do have issues, quite a few actually. Shoulder pain, hip pain. I kind of just live with chronic pain at this point. So that does kind of, I mean, and like you said, it's been 6 years almost since it all started. It just kind of, I took kind of wrestling away from me. So that also played a huge mental toll on me. I was told probably my freshman year of college that if I decided to keep wrestling, they weren't going to do any more surgeries until I was done. And so I know I had to have a long sit down with my mom. I'm pretty sure you and I have had a call or two of me just bawling because it was wrestling or the rest of my life. And I think I kind of realized finally that the rest of my life was more important than a couple more good years of wrestling. So,
Yep. And one of the things that I was going to definitely talk about, because you were there, and because of your surgery, you didn't get to wrestle in that very first IWCOA. We still got up by ungodly hour of the day, and it had snowed, and they said they weren't going to cancel. So I remember I had borrowed my dad's F-250, so we had 4-wheel drive. This is when the school probably should have provided transportation, but we're hopping in a personal vehicle to make it down to the IWCOA, the very first state tournament. And you weren't the only one. Jaden Bentley was another girl that had been a very big part of Iowa girls wrestling. One of those first ones. And to see both of you sitting there, not getting to participate in that was really kind of hard. But just even as being a spectator at that and seeing the growth from that, maybe that some of those early tournaments, the female elite one, what was it like to be in Waverly, even on that cold ass day?
I couldn't imagine myself anywhere else that day. Wrestling or not, I felt like if I wouldn't have been there, I would have been heartbroken, definitely. It was such a heartwarming day to experience, like something that I helped grow, that we went from 66 girls in high school wrestling my freshman year to, I think there were over 200 there that day.
Yeah, it was huge growth, and it's and a lot. I talked to a lot of the girls, that in this last month, I've talked to quite a number of girls, and yep, you guys weren't the first, but you were part of a group that really started the growth of girls wrestling. You might not have been that girl in the early 80s, late 70s, one girl in the state wrestling, which is really cool and it's historic. But you guys, just because of the way you were and the way you worked with the youth kids, and anytime you saw a girl, how you've grown the sport of wrestling. And I know that's something that was really important. So, even at some of these tournaments, what are some of the things that you did maybe to help the younger girls?
Definitely talking to them, I feel like was just something to them, like hearing the stories of what we had to go through. Another thing would be letting them feel their feelings. Like, being a girl in a mentally hard sport is a lot, and letting especially the younger girls feel their feelings and telling them it's okay to be upset, was very helpful. Just the pep talks, and I know a lot of them love just to have the older girls coach them. They didn't even want their practice coaches coaching them. They wanted the older girls. So just showing them the support that you were there for them.
Yeah, that's, and I think that's super important. I've even had you come into my room once a year, and we got to get that scheduled before you're having babies and stuff. So
Yes.
we'll have to get that done here because the season's just started, but we'll definitely get that done. And that means a lot to the girls to have someone come in that had to go through a different experience than they did. So I appreciate that so much when you come in. I'm looking back through some of these things, and I've written some things down. You went to Fargo. You got to go to Fargo one time and wrestle a little freestyle. And at the time, that was not. I mean, how many people do you remember on the team that went up there for Iowa?
Not very many.
10-ish, 15, somewhere in
Maybe.
there. I believe they brought close to 100 this year from Iowa. So, I mean, just a whole different event. What was your experience at Fargo? How did you like that? I mean, you were with some big names. Alana, you were with Jasmine Bailey, or was Jasmine might have been coaching at the time?
I say it was Charlotte for us. I don't
Yeah,
remember. Jasmine, I
Jasmine
think, was at Fargo coaching a little bit, but I don't remember much of practice, I guess.
was Rachel on that team too, if I remember right, maybe.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
so I mean, what was it like just to being up at Fargo, biggest tournament in the country, right?
It was an experience. It was probably not one of the greatest experiences, but I did win a match down there. So I mean, it was definitely nice to have that on the back burner. But it's crazy to see. I guess since that one's more of like the whole United States, that was crazy to me to see everybody out there. I mean, it was huge.
Yeah, that is first. I mean, I've only been to Fargo once and was to go up and watch you, and I did not coach. I just sat and watched and stuff. So, but yeah, it was a hell of an experience. It was really crazy to see that many
Yes.
mats and that many girls and all that stuff. One other thing and you'll remember this. Well, I'll go back to the IWCOA tournament, and you had the opportunity to, we went together, and that day, you and I represented like 3 or 4 different high schools because we coached Carly from Hinton, we coached Allie at Cedar Rapids Kennedy, we coached Shay at Kingsley Pearson, and those things. I told Aaron Kirtley or Aaron Gerlich now. I told Aaron that we had done that, and she said, "No, you didn't do that." I said, "Yeah, yeah. We Keegan and I ended up coaching. I think maybe even one of those matches, Carly and Shay wrestled. So I think we split up and coached against each other.
We did.
You know." So I mean, she couldn't believe that was a thing. But I was like, that's how girls wrestling was at the time. And some days I miss that, that smallness of it. But are there any memories that really stand out to you about just the how it was growing and anything, just any memories that really stand out?
I say the biggest memories are everybody I've met along the way. Definitely creating those lifelong friendships that, again, are still going to this day, 6 years later. And just watching them advance themselves. Not even in wrestling, just in life. I mean, watching them living their life, getting different careers, going to college, just seeing what they've become from wrestling.
Yeah, I mean, what would you say in that whole thing there? What has wrestling done for you since?
Um, Wrestling has definitely made me a more determined person. It has made me realize that all the big things that are problems are really just little things that you will work through in life. School being one of them. I know, like we talked about earlier, my injuries kind of put a mental impact on me in the first couple years of college. I wasn't really a college person. I wanted to go have fun. And then I finally realized it was time that I needed to grow up and get through it. And in December, I graduate with my RN, which I thought 3 years ago was never going to be possible again.
Yeah, and that is incredible. That's awesome. You've done a lot of things throughout your career in wrestling, and you know, one of those things, you won the Tricia Saunders Award. So that is, for Iowa. It's given out to the top senior in the state, still is to this day. Pretty cool to do that. And then you were the very first recruit at Grandview University. It obviously with the injuries, that career didn't work out, but that's still a pretty cool thing. And I remember going down there. What was your thoughts as we went down to Grandview? And actually you had committed to Midland.
Yep.
Their coaches left,
Mm-hmm.
and then Grandview announced. So why don't you tell me about the recruiting process? That's something maybe we haven't really talked a whole lot about.
Um, I guess it wasn't as much as I thought it was going to be. It was pretty actually simple process. Crinzy and I talked for probably a good month, set up a date, um, got everything worked out. We went to Des Moines. Um, we had kind of the paparazzi taking our pictures and everything. Got to see the room that we would be wrestling in just a short few months. Um, signed our papers and we kind of toured the campus, and yeah.
That was all said and done. And Midland, that's where Alana had gone and stuff. And you know, I had coached with Barber, and that was coaching the women's team at Midland at the time, and then he had left. I'm sure that probably had some influence of where you were thinking about going, because we had been to that room. What was it? What was your thought process in the whole thing of going? Because sometimes I feel like maybe, especially then, and I still do it to this day, and I'm trying to hold back on doing it as much. Are we pushing girls into college wrestling without really considering, do they really want to be college wrestlers?
I feel like maybe just a little bit. Definitely, I feel like we don't quite show them how much work it really is. I mean, it's not even just in the wrestling room, it's the weightlifting that you have to be up for at like 5 a.m. It's the extra work you have to put in on the side to get the extra help you want to be a little bit extra successful in the room. It's school, like you have to be succeeding in school in order to be succeeding in the wrestling room. I mean, and it's especially for freshman college girls, like it's just a whole different experience, because most of it's year round. It's not just a short few months and then you're done. It's you work all year round from summer to the next summer.
Yeah, it's that's why I've kind of stopped. I'm trying to not be as pushy, because I'm assuming, I know with you, I just assumed that's what you were doing. It was a joint. I don't even know if it was a joint decision. I decided that Keagan was going to go wrestle in college, and that's kind of how it was from day one. Even, I mean, once we started I started coaching. I just assumed that's the path that we would take and stuff. So, um, any advice to the girls? Maybe give them a little bit of advice on think. Because it's not for everybody.
No. Don't say it's not for you. I feel like if you've put work in, I feel like for me it was kind of something that I was working towards no matter what. Either it wasn't just a second thought. That's the sport that I worked year round for. That's the sport I was gonna stick with. But I would just say the advice would be to look at your other options. I know Tatum went for softball. Look at your other options that you do have for other sports, and don't always just settle, I guess, for what you expect.
Yeah. And I'm hoping that maybe as coaches hear this message, they're not just assuming that their athletes are going to go to college, because it is a huge commitment, and the school part is more important than the wrestling part. A lot of time. Oh, I want to talk a little bit about the South Central Calhoun team, because your cousin Jeff is now
Yes.
coaching. So it's a family affair, the King family in South Central Calhoun. How many cousins be state qualifiers, place winners? I mean, a
A
bunch,
few.
quite a few. And now
Yeah.
Jeff, your older cousin, is coaching. What's
Yep.
what's I'm sure you hear from your sister and stuff. How is the South Central Calhoun team? Because I was partially responsible for starting that team, with Evelyn and all those guys as middle schoolers. So it's always going to be one of those teams I follow a little bit. What does your sister say about South Central Calhoun wrestling?
Um, I think she's really looking forward to this year. Having a coach, especially a cousin who definitely makes it a lot easier and more calming. I feel like kind of an environment, um I think she's just excited.
Good, good, and have a good number going out.
I don't know. I think mom said maybe 16 or 20 girls on their first
Wow,
day,
yeah,
which is quite a few for them.
that's a really good number. So some of the things I like to do on this, and I'm gonna try to keep the same format for everybody, because it's kind of fun to hear some of these things. I like to ask just some different questions to bring up some different things that will come up. Some questions don't go anywhere, but like, what's your favorite color?
Blue.
You're a blue person. Gotcha.
I'm a blue person.
Okay. So the family's going to go on a vacation. Are you going to go to the ocean or the mountains?
Oh, that's a good one. I would probably pick the ocean.
Think you pick the ocean. What are some things like, I mean, with going ocean or mountains and stuff, I've talked to a few different girls that you know, one lives in Arizona, so hiking out in the mountains is really fun for her. What do you like to do outside of being a mom and going to school and working? And what do you do for fun?
Um, Honestly, we just we're more of a homebody people. We like to sit at home. We like to enjoy each other's company. We have our little we call it our funny farm. We have goats, chickens, pigs. We enjoy spending time outside with all of them, all of our animals. Bexley, my daughter, she's definitely meant for the outside. She is meant to be a farm girl.
Nice, nice, very nice. So, have you been to the ocean before?
I did when I was like 3 months old.
3 months. So it's been a day or two since you've got to see the ocean. So that's definitely a trip that you'll want to take it sometime. Been to the mountains?
No.
No. So either way, that's something we
Yeah.
got to go.
Yeah.
So you're gonna go start. Let's say you're gonna start wrestling next year again. You got this great offer, and you're gonna go to be a doctor. So the University of Iowa is taking you. What kind of shoes are you gonna buy? What brand?
It would probably definitely be my Adidas ones. I have the American flag ones still, so I would definitely stick with those.
Oh my God, the Adidas. I thought I
Yeah.
raised you right. I'm sorry.
No,
That's all right. So you're gonna listen to what's your favorite music? What's your favorite genre of music first?
I kind of listen to everything, a little
Okay.
bit of everything.
So if you're back at Iowa next year wrestling, right? What's the song that's going to be in the earbuds before you go out on the mat?
Probably remember the name.
Remember the name. Very good. I like that.
Yep.
Did you have a pre-match ritual?
Um, I definitely did. I had my bright pink beats on that I just refound the other day, and they still work. Um,
Nice.
I went off to a corner. I kind of just pep talked myself, listened to my music. Went over that this is my match. I control what happens in the match. I kind of just talked myself through what I would be doing in a match, kind of.
Nice. Yeah, because that's something we talk a lot about is pre-match ritual, and actually going into next week, we're 1 week out of competition basically. So I'm going to be talking a little bit more about that. Everybody that I've talked to has had a pre-match ritual, and I think it's really important. You only got really one opportunity to do it, other than when you were in college. If you were to choose between folk style and freestyle, which direction would you go?
I was a folk style person, 100%. I just feel like I never got a lot of the freestyle practice or enough experience with it to pick it. So,
And maybe your style with some of the things you did off the bottom to win matches and stuff might
yes,
lend itself more towards folk style anyway. Um,
yes.
I started this and I talked a little bit about the clip I had sent you from Mariah, and stuff. What's it like to know that you made impact on people's lives?
It's definitely heartwarming. I really didn't ever see myself as having that big of an impact on people. Um, I also just thought not that they didn't know me, it's just that I wasn't from a bigger place, like a bigger town. I was from a small town, so I just wasn't as well known. So to know 6 years down the road, I'm still kind of impacting people and still like they watch me to this day on how I'm doing as a person. It really is just very heartwarming that I did make that impact on their life, that they do want to stick around and watch what I've got to offer in the future.
Yeah. So, and I had said that you're the one person that impacted my life a lot. I'd not coached girls, and quite honestly, I think you've heard me say, if I would have stayed where I was at, I would have been done coaching several years ago. Right. So the number of girls, I mean, again, I'm going to look at these pictures on the wall, and there's probably 100 different people of pictures on the wall. And that's just a fraction of the people that I have coached after coaching you, and the impact that you have made because you kept me coaching, because it's important. So I do think it's important that the impact that you had. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now and stuff without you. So I'm really happy that whether that's a God-given thing, if that was a fate thing, if that was just a complete coincidence that we ended up coming together somehow, that was pretty cool. You know, um, it's neat also that outside of wrestling, we've continued to be friends, and I was able to be the officiant in your wedding and stuff. That was really cool. So, I just want to say thank you, because that was really cool for me and stuff. I like to give everybody an opportunity. Final thoughts, doesn't have to be profound. We've been talking, looks like about 40, close to 45 minutes. That seems like about the right amount of time to get people to stay interested. What are some
Yes.
final thoughts that you have throughout wrestling career, as a mom, anything? I don't care.
Um, just overall, don't give up. And also don't push yourself to the point where you have to give up, I guess, too. Know the happy medium. Um, and if you ever need anybody to talk to, I'm always available. I'm always willing to be that listening ear, because wrestling is a very mental, hard sport. And I've been there, so
Well, I'll make sure I
let's
give your
all,
number out to all the girls on the
yes,
team and
yes.
stuff. So, no, I mean, I know that after January, your life's going to get turned upside down again for at least a year or so, and things get tough. But when you are prepared and ready to come back to the mat and stuff, you are welcome. And if you want to start with the club, you are welcome to start there one day a week, anytime you want. Thank you so much for coming on and doing this, and stay on just for a minute or two, and we'll talk.
Perfect. Thank you.